Hello to anybody watching this video. After the number of thankful comments and views that I got on some of the videos that I had about magnetizing Castellan robots and armatures, I figured that I would share some of my thoughts on trying to magnetize the Scorpius so that it can be used as both the Disintegrator and the Dunerider. So first step, of course, we've got our 2 points of contact for this. Got some magnets on there. And again, using the same method where you use the stack of magnets as the way to apply to the hole, enables you to keep the poles on these set up so that you don't accidentally set up something where you're trying to connect the wrong poles on there. So we've got that cannon, we've got the large cannon. These are a little hard to do, I'm not going to lie to you, because as a 2mm magnet, and you can see that it is almost the exact same size as the shaft on this piece, so you have to be exceedingly careful. I use a drill and a pin vise in order to do that job. I imagine most people are using the same thing, not taking a drill to these. But you got full range of motion on the turret by not gluing it, and this thing, these bits that they stuck on the back mean you can't really raise it very high, which for the bombardment cannon, I think it would make sense if you could point this thing up at an angle like that, but unfortunately you can't. So here's how you go about setting this up so that you can use it as both the Dunerider and the Disintegrator. So you get the transport, or you can use it as a tank if you like. First, you leave this unglued, little hatch there, and you leave the entirety of this unglued. And you can see this joins up. I do not have the 3 bars across here that you would normally have on the Disintegrator. I decided not to bother with those. First of all, what am I protecting? I'm protecting the front glacis of a tank. That doesn't make a whole ton of sense. But if you leave this unglued, this just sits on top, which is nice. And then this fits in down here, and you can basically tilt this whole thing out. And you'll see that inside, instead of just gluing the guns, I've actually got our little Skitari guys who are not glued yet. They're going to get primed and painted separately, which I normally hate doing, but this time I'm going to make an exception. I'm going to actually put in the, ammo boxes. I think that these add a lot. Of course, these guys with their ammo boxes mean you're in no way fitting a 10-man squad in there in real life, right? They would never show up, but they no room for them. They'd all be covered in hot shells. But what we do have is got the side pieces for the Dunerider, right? And you'll obviously see some shiny bits on there. So I have at the top, I've got a magnet, and at the bottom, on the inside, I've got a magnet, and then there is one that is countersunk, but not entirely countersunk. You can see it stands somewhat proud of the surface there. And it joins up with a magnet that you can barely see right here on the headlight. Let me pick that up. So the inside of each headlight housing, also has a magnet. I'm just going to take this guy out of the way for right now. Not going to bother fiddling with him. And the way that this is set up, both of these join together so that they stays pretty much exactly where you need it to be once it's put into place, right? Got a magnet here. I've got a magnet glued up underneath. This does very little at this magnet size, but what it does do is just hold that top corner. And then we've got the same thing on the bottom. The other side, rather. Right there. So you get a magnet that is also countersunk into here. And this actually obviously leaves enough room for the door right there, and then you can actually close it up. This is not the most you know, bulletproof setup in the world. But, you know, it'll stay there while you pick it up and move it around, right? Put it down. You can even actually drop the thing when they're assaulting, and it'll mostly stay put. But what I did was, because you got another problem. There's only one of these guys that shows up, right? And he's got this this armature that goes inside of the big turret, right? Or serves to mount these two stubbers, right? And his little shield. So it's the same armature that they provide in order to do both of those jobs. You really don't need it for the inside of the turret. And I'll show you what I did for that. But so there he is. We set him up, and then we've got our, you know, all of our needed stubbers with that guy in place to have WYSIWYG action in case you're, you know, tournamenting or anything. And this guy, you'll notice I took the stock, the weapon profile doesn't show up on the actual unit anyway, so it doesn't make a ton of difference what he's carrying. So instead of the boring radium pistol, I gave him the, I forget what that thing's called off the top of my head, honestly. It's been probably 8 months since I played my Skitarii out, unfortunately. But that may change with this transport available to me. Plan to take it out. But, so, move him out of the way for a little bit. And let's talk about the fact that, again, there's only one servitor that comes with, right? So you kind of need another solution. And what I basically did was I had some leftover servitor heads from some Cataphren destroyers, and what's the other one called? Oh, Cataphren servitors anyway. And I basically had a leftover Space Marine torso, leftover Electro Priest backpack, and some Electro Priest head things, the collars that they've got. Sorry, I'm not holding them so you can see it. So you can see the backpack and the Electro Priest things, basically just to fill up the space in between him and the turret. You can see that there's still some space, right? But he doesn't look awful. And then, you know, when he's facing forward, he's actually peeking over the top of that thing. So he stands a little bit prouder of the surface than he would otherwise, and I actually deliberately had to add stuff into the hole that's in the bottom of that turret in order to make it work. But then you've got a second servitor that you don't need to use this guy inside of the turret. I mean, you could obviously probably build the turret without that at all, right? But the other thing that's necessary for this, in addition to all the magnets, is if you're going to have that ladder in the back there, you actually have to, the standard setup for that ladder comes up and goes into those two little depressions right there, you can see. What I did was I cut it off where it bent over, right? Where it bent over like this. I cut it off even with the edge, and then I made 2 snips on each side and then 1 snip on the top, and then I was able to take off the top with an X-Acto knife, right? So that when you actually put this piece on, you can see it lays flat. I mean, your other alternative would be cut a U-shaped hole in here and leave some little mechy bits sticking out, but I decided that would be more work and less fault tolerant than simply leaving that top of that ladder off, rather than trying to, you know, cut U-shaped holes into the armor of this thing. But obviously it switches pretty quick, and these guys will be glued in place so they won't be flying everywhere. But yeah, put that in, and then attach both sides of the Dunerider setup, and you're pretty much good to go. So I hope that some folks find this useful, and continue to serve the Omnicide. Have a great day.